Well, the big show that is sweeping the nation at the post wrestling universe. It is Collision Course with John Cena and Kate from Montreal. Way and I are going to share some of our thoughts on Collision. But if you want to go get a sample of Collision Course, we have made for 1 week only a free sample of their show. You can listen to this past weekend's show where Kate and John go through Samoa Joe versus CM Punk 4 from, well, billed as 4. They've had more, but 4 is the unofficial chronology now attached to these two members in Regina, Saskatchewan. So go get all the happenings from Kate and John with their always thorough rundown from our newest show at Post Wrestling.
Yeah, that's available on the free feed. So just scroll down beneath this one. You'll be able to find this past week's edition of Collision Course. I thought the two of them did a great job. We even heard from some callers on the show as well.
That is true. Yes. We also did a show, myself and Andrew Thompson, on a Friday night. A lot of great calls on Friday. So if you want to catch up on the weekend action, that is where you can go. But I want to go back to Regina, Saskatchewan way. And what did you think about week number 4 of Collision and CM Punk Samoa Joe?
So this was, I think they're, appropriate, like biggest swing at bat for Collision thus far. The first episode, well, arguably maybe aside of the first one with the return of CM Punk, but first one had a lot of hype just with Punk coming back. Second one had him, it still felt like relatively big because it was our second appearance from CM Punk. You got a bit more of a fleshing out of some of the characters involved. Third one was where things took a real turn without much to look forward to. I would say the excitement around, the show had pretty much died down at that point, and it resulted in the rating that we ended up getting. This was where they really picked things back up with a huge, at least to longtime fans, singles match, a rare singles match involving CM Punk on TV. And, but the big discussion I think coming out of it was that it wasn't the best match on the show. I thought it was a satisfying match. I wasn't expecting them to maybe, deliver us to us like, a 60-minute draw or anything, resembling maybe their prior matches. But I thought it was satisfying and appropriate given, what I've seen of the two lately. But the match of the show was certainly FTR versus Bullet Club Gold, which that went 30 minutes and it was an outstanding match.
I thought this was the best Collision to date of the 4. I thought that this was such a well-packed show that had just a collection of just a lot of elements. Like obviously Punk and Joe was front and center and should have been front and center for this show. And they were in a tough spot where you are taking a match that, even if you were a big fan of it in the first iterations in 2004, with so many years removed, you're going to romanticize it so much more. So you're fighting history with your fan base, and you have to do it in 15 minutes with a commercial break in there. So it's, it is, and it's just natural. These guys are they're 18 years older, 19 really from their, 18 from the last time that they had a match together. I was with you. I thought like it was certainly the tag match that was the match of the show. It felt like one of those great tag matches you would get in like the early 90s in WCW with like your Austins and Ricky Steamboats, and where it was just a really well done match. Probably the best we have seen of Juice Robinson and Jay White in AEW, where this is the kind of match that a Jay White is really going to stand out with all the little things he does and having the time to do so, as opposed to the short window that sometimes he's got to cram a 16-minute story into a 7-minute match. And that was not the case here. And you almost thought they were going to do like the 30 minutes and they'd be up and come back with a rematch. Instead, they did do the ending and comes back with a 2 out of 3 falls match the next week. I also thought the crowd this was not a huge crowd in Regina, but they sounded so much louder than Hamilton the previous week. And that was very true in the opener with Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, who I thought had a really good 11-minute match for the time that they had. The crowd elevated it. They were into both guys, and a bit of a surprising outcome with Hobbs losing, at least in my mind. But I really liked this show on Saturday. I had to break it up because I was watching the UFC pay-per-view, but I found like this was a show that I was glad that I got to see on Saturday night, and it was the most satisfied I left a Collision with so far after the first four.
Mm-hmm. It was a show where we were also supposed to get Athena versus Willow Nightingale, and due to injuries to Willow that they discussed from the New Japan shows, she was unable to compete. And I don't know where they might have made up for that time. One would think maybe that went into the half-hour tag team match that took place, but I think the show was kind of, I mean, we don't know. I'm sure they would have had a great match, but all I'm saying is we didn't have that much like build for the show, and I think it helped the show because it felt like we had a lot of breathing room for a lot of what we ended up seeing, and enough anticipation being put in for almost everything on this show, whether it be this tag team match or the two Owen Hart Cup tournament matches or the return of Scorpio Sky. Even got a little bit of Julia Hart in there as well, putting maybe her sort of like winning streak into more of a spotlight. So I agree, I thought it was a very satisfying 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. So you can see on Collision like who the kind of focused upon stars are. I think one difference we're going to see in Collision, and probably because of this, it's not a split, but we do have people that are earmarked for Collision and not Dynamite, that maybe we won't see this on Dynamite as frequently, but like a Scorpio Sky, I'm pretty confident this guy's going to be back with a regular presence. And it's not going to be a case of he gets this win and we don't see him on TV for 3 or 4 weeks and we forget about him. I think with Hobbs, yes, he lost in the tournament here. We're going to get follow-up on it next week. Punk, is going to be on every week. Joe's going to be on every week. Juice and Jay, like those four are
Miro and Andrade and the House of Black seem to be,
they're all progressing week by week. And I think that does help, because sometimes that's where momentum gets lost on Dynamite, is someone has a great match and then you don't follow up on it, or you do so on, not on the main show. And now you don't have the dark shows anymore to even follow up on in a smaller way.
There's a set cast of characters, people that you expect to be around every single week, and that's how you're able to tell stories, through consistency. I mean, Dynamite has that too, but it feels a lot more spread out. Maybe through Rampage too, even. But so thus far, Collision, I think, has given you a pretty defined roster.
Yes, and so this coming Saturday, it's the show in Calgary. It is the Owen Hart Cup final with CM Punk against Ricky Starks, and then the women's final will be Athena and Willow. They're obviously hopeful enough that Willow can wrestle on Wednesday because she's advertised for Rampage, and then that winner will face the winner of Ruby Soho and Sky Blue, who have their match on Wednesday. Plus, you have the tag title rematch with FTR against Juice Robinson and Jay White that is going to be on the Collision portion, because Battle of the Belts will follow Collision this coming Saturday, and that's got Luchasaurus against Sean Spears announced so far. I thought they might just put the tag titles on Battle of the Belts and let them go like 45 minutes. Just do the 2 matches on Battle of the Belts, but probably best to put them on the prime 2 hours, because I could see a drop off for Battle of the Belts.
I could see that too, unless they announce something, extra special for Battle of the Belts. And judging by prior Battles of the Belts, that has never really been the case. So.
What if Luchasaurus and Spears go the hour?
Okay, then maybe change my mind. I mean, longer doesn't necessarily mean better, John. So, can it be a compelling, hour after already a 2-hour show?
How much Brett is going to be all over the show? Not physically there, but just the present. Like, you're in Calgary. It's all the Owen Hart Cup. You've got FTR that I would imagine open the show and Punk closes the show with Starks. I mean, it'll be a very interesting show.
Or the women's final might open as well.
Yeah, perhaps you could sandwich them together.
I guess unlikely, given like the way that they booked, like Tony has booked these AEW shows. But sure, yeah. And
then you do the ceremony at the end, where I'm hoping that, imagine like CM Punk and say whoever the women's winner is, Ruby Soho, wear the gangster hats with Tony.
Oh, okay.
It's a bit more gangster this year. They wanted, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, that's coming up. I thought it was a very good episode. Again, as I've stated, the number will be out tomorrow. My impression is that it'll be a rebound from last week, but I'm still not expecting this to be through the roof. But we'll see. I mean, we have seen a big range from episode 1 to 2 to 3. And we're still finding our bearings out on what Collision is going to get steady at. But week 4, at least on paper, you looked at this as a pretty enticing show, and we'll see if the number backs that up.